Well, welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Muslims all over the world are today celebrating Idel Kabir in commemoration of Prophet Ibrahim's desire to sacrifice his son Ishmael in obedience to Allah. On this occasion, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has expressed optimism that the sacrifices and great expectations of Nigerians would not be in vain, stressing that positive outcomes are beginning to manifest with the economy strengthening and vibrancy returning to critical sectors of the economy. Other notable personalities in the country have also seized on the opportunity to pray for peace and harmony among Nigerians, including the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Speaker of the House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas, and former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi. Well, happy Eid.
Barakah Salah. Especially to you.
Thank you very much. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day of, I would say, celebration, and also a good time to look at the country and look at all the things that are going around the country. A good time for people and their families to get together. It's a very rainy Sunday this morning, but I always think Salah is a beautiful time for family to come together across the country. And I hope that even in a time where the economy is quite difficult, where there's hunger in the land, that this is a reminder to people in power that, you know, with all the issues with the price of RAM, the cost of transportation, the insecurity in the country, that this would be a reminder for the people in power that they need to do better to preserve the dignity of Nigerian lives so that we would always have a reason to celebrate.
I mean, that's well said, Adesua. But I'm not so sure about, the correlation between Salah and the state of the nation. But I just want to eat some, nice hot ram meat, today. But anything that will stop that, and that brings us back to the economy, anything that will stop that, we should address it. And you're very correct. Practically every year, just like during the Yuletide, Christmas, New Year, people talk about the fact that, the astronomical increase in, the prices of food items, etc. Of course, for Salah, ram is a key component of the whole celebration. And I'm stunned by what I see in the media, particularly social media. People talking about 1.2 million, about 800,000, about 700,000 just for one ram. So I worry. I worry because I believe that to Muslim faithful is an injunction, to go through that, if you like, spiritual ritual every year. And if you're not able to afford it, yes, I understand that you really don't have to kill yourself for that. But so many people look forward to it. So much so that in Yoruba land, what people, there's a prayer to it, Obe oni sele. In other words, may you not have a cause not to be able to kill a ram. And so for those who may be struggling, I can see why they will link that to the whole issue of what is happening in Nigeria. And we must not pretend that things are easy. They aren't for the majority of the people. Yes, there will be celebration. Yes, a lot of people will mingle and go around. And I hope that the ram meat will flow. But just like you said, Adesua, this will be an important period again, given the solemn import of the day for those in power, for those in authorities, to say that maybe we can do better. Maybe there are areas that we can tweak, even those who are interested in new policies and reforms, etc. But if the whole idea of governance is about the protection of the people and their welfare, maybe we can certainly do a lot better. And I hope that, today, Ben Salah Day will be remembered in Nigeria and for the generality of the people as a great day, that people do not have to shed tears because they couldn't kill a ram.
I mean, just to pick up where you left from, I think I started Salah a bit early, but just...
It shows now, right?
But, I mean, just to kind of pick up from what you said about that, that prayer where, how do you say it? Obe oni sele. There are lots of people, this year, unfortunately, who might not be able to celebrate in the grand style that they usually, will. And, it's rather unfortunate because this is supposed to be, a time of celebration, of time of making merry, coming together. You know, Nigerians we love coming together as a community. Once there's food, once there's drinks, once there's music, you know, everybody's in a good mood. So, you know, my, you know, prayer, you know, this morning is that even with the little that, you know, families have, that they are able to at least celebrate that you know, that they're together. On my way to work, you know, this morning, you know, almost every let's say 2 meters away, you would see, you know, military men, you know, because obviously we have the president who is in town celebrating Salah as the, you know, as the city boy that he is. He's back in Lagos, and you know, every year he also does this thing where he actually, you know, gives out. You know, you see a lot of people who go to the front of his residence there at Bodilon
last night, and I could see a multitude
of people just waiting to, of course, get something. You know, something that they can, you know, eat, you know, can drink, you know, can share with their families. And I think that in itself is, you know, the president also showing that, okay, in his own capacity, he's able to feed as many people as possible.
But, you know, I do have an issue with that.
Issue with that.
But you're not looking at it from the angle of zakat, isn't it? You know, giving alms, giving, you know, supporting.
I think it's good to give alms, and I think it's good to support. But I also feel that sometimes, you know, part of the power of the political class lies in the hunger of the poorest. That's all I would say there.
Well, I'm not sure that's the whole idea why people go to Bodilon, you know. That's a
that's
political undertaking. But I get your point.
He's always done it. So if he didn't do it this year, it would have been a bit strange if he is like, so
no,
now,
I think it's good. You should always, you know, give, and I'm full support of giving and charity. But I also think that when there is so much hunger in the land, food becomes a weapon of sorts. So
correct.
All right.
Correct.
And on that note, I rest my case. Let's move on now very quickly to our next story. Israel's military says 8 soldiers were killed in southern Gaza in the bloodiest strike on Israeli forces in months. The servicemen were killed in an explosion, according to the army, without providing any details. The killings are expected to feed calls for a ceasefire and increase Israeli public outrage about ultra-Orthodox exemptions from the military. In January, Palestinian terrorists murdered 21 Israeli soldiers in Gaza. Last month, Israel's Supreme Court ruled that many ultra-Orthodox males who do not serve in the army will no longer get government subsidies. A new draft law has not yet been enacted, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition decided last week to prolong exemptions for religious men. I mean, this news coming in, Hamas saying it's carried out a very complex ambush against enemy vehicles. What is also, I think, what also makes this story, makes this story very heartbreaking is that even the rescue team that was sent in to go and see if there were any survivors were also attacked. I mean, this brouhaha between Israeli and the Palestinians continues to just seems as if it's not going to end. And on a day like this where we're supposed to be celebrating, you know, Salah, this is just really heartbreaking news coming out from that region.
You're right. I mean, very correct. I share the same sentiment. This is not the type of a story that you want to be discussing on Salah Day. But of course, you know that in matters of war, important days are usually a target, you know, to carry out. I mean, terrorists also use it. I see that the word, you know, terror is usually brought in, you know, whenever it concerns Israel and Palestine. But for what is happening, I'm just concerned and disappointed that this looks like the type of war that is so endless. At what point will we have a closure? And of course, you can tie that to the sort of a thing that we're also witnessing between Russia and Ukraine. At what point will there be victory? If victory is the right word at all. At what point will the war stop? At what point will there be a deal, you know, to say that, come on, we've lost enough souls, we've shed enough blood, let's call it a day. It doesn't look to me like the international community is able, you know, to do anything. In both cases, particularly in the case of, you know, Gaza, which is a retaliatory kind of, you know, attack by Israel. And so I'm sure that, you know, maybe tomorrow morning, maybe by next weekend, we'll wake up to another piece of disheartening news about how many numbers of people have died or have been rescued or have been killed is such a shame, really. It's sad. And, maybe we can't blame the United Nations. We can see at least what they're trying to do in terms of all the votings and trying to put Israel on check. But when you have America, having your back, as it is obvious for Israel, it doesn't look like there will be a closure anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, it is a war I believe a couple of servicemen have died. For me, that's not the tragedy. The tragedy is that Israel is killing, on average, 250 Palestinians a day. 250. Even when they rescued the hostages, I believe over 200 Palestinians died. From the rescuing of 4 Israeli lives, we lost nearly 200 or over 200 Palestinian lives. For me, the scale is not even comparable. The scale of loss is not comparable. This is the death of servicemen, of soldiers in a war. This is not the death of citizens or civilians, which is what we're seeing in Gaza, which is what we're seeing in the West Bank. Like, beyond the struggle that is going on, or the conflict that is going on between Hamas and Israel, or the IDF forces, we're seeing Palestinians even being killed in the West Bank, which is a completely different location from Gaza. So for me, the story for me, or the tragedy in this, is that Palestinian lives seem to not matter to the West, to America, to the powers that be, because they're not being safeguarded, they're not being protected as much, they do not count as much. If 4 Palestinians died yesterday, I very much don't think it would make headlines across the world, because that would even be a low number, right?
I'm wondering, are there still a number of hostages in Gaza with the Palestine? There must be, right?
So I think it's
because I'm going somewhere with that.
Yes, there are hostages in Gaza.
Yeah.
Yes, being held by Hamas.
Will it not help to release them and go back to a vestige of what we had before October 7th?
The ceasefire agreement, yes. But Israel has rejected
I do not think that any
month.
blackmail, further blackmail will work. And you said it, it doesn't look like, Palestinian lives matter so much to, I won't say to the West, it's not, it's not every part of the West, but to those who can cause things to happen. And therefore, maybe an olive branch from Palestine, because you are.
I would say that
Netanyahu refuses to end this invasion before. He's been very, very direct on repeating over and over again and reiterating that until Hamas is fully eradicated, they are not going to stop, bombing. They looked at this, what was it, a week-long truce in November that actually tried to help free 100 Israelis. And I was looking at it when you were asking that there's still more than 100 captives that are believed to still remain in Gaza. But according to information that has come back, is that even these captives, apart from the 4 that were rescued, have actually been killed. So there's no bargaining power, so to speak, and that's why we continue to see this back and forth.
Yes, I mean, with the hostage situation, right, there has been calls for release of hostages, for ceasefire, so that they can get aid coming into Gaza, because aid was blocked in certain passes, so that they could stop the actual invasion, the ground invasion into Rafah. So there have been different negotiations with the Hamas leaders in order to release hostages so they can get aid, so they can get a ceasefire. And Netanyahu has repeatedly rejected these truces. He has rejected it. He has rejected the actual release of hostages, which is why Israelis in Israel, the families of the hostages, actually protested. They actually hit the streets and protested as Netanyahu. So I don't believe that we can't keep holding a population.
It's implacable, Netanyahu. I mean, it will appear. And it doesn't look like Mr. Biden is able to intervene in the manner that the rest of the world will appreciate.
And Biden just offered Ukraine $50 billion in military aid. That $15 billion is even more than Nigeria's budget for the year in just military aid to Ukraine. So sometimes we have to see what they're doing and we have to take it for what it is.
Sadly.
Yes.